Hello, thanks for joining us again at the Odgers Berndtson One Question vidcast. My name's Jules McKean. I run the media practice globally for Odgers Executive Search, and I could not be more delighted to have Simon Morris on my vidcast today. Simon, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For those of you who don't know him, and I think most of you will do, Simon Morris is one of the most successful creative entrepreneurs in the UK. He was inducted into the UK Marketing Hall of Fame after a career that launched Sega in Europe and made Sonic the Hedgehog a household name. After a stint at Sky and then at Ginger TV with Chris Evans, and for those who remember TFI Friday, I mean, I certainly do, he was the bloke who knows what's going on. Simon then co-founded in 1996 one of the first wave .com super brands, 365 Core. 365 was pioneers in digital publishing with brands such as Football 365, Rugby 365, and Music 365. But then he went on to found LoveFilm.com. And LoveFilm was an EU subscription streaming and DVD delivery service for those of you who are old enough to remember that we didn't always just have it on demand. And he eventually sold LoveFilm to Amazon, and that formed the platform for Prime Video today. And for the past decade since then, Simon has been absolutely the forefront of worldwide creativity. He's the creative lead for Amazon, winning 3 Emmy nominations and a letter from the Pope along the way, courtesy of his outstanding Super Bowl ads. He's recognized regularly in the creative industry with top 100 because he's had such a unique career and has created billions of dollars of shareholder value. He's always focused on business results within creativity. And a proud South Londoner by birth, Simon's delighted to have recently been appointed Governor of the Museum of London and Chair of Content Hotshot Novel, amongst other investments. Simon, it has been a crazy year, lots of ups and downs, lots of headwinds. You've always been very vocal around your belief in positive mental health and talking about mental health in the context of business. And given that our question is reasons to be cheerful, do you believe we've got reasons to be cheerful with that in mind?
Yes, I do. I think, I am, as is clear in that bio, and thank you for that. I'm old, as my kids said to me the other day. They didn't send me a text saying, "Happy birthday, you are old." And I've been around the block a bit, and I think I calculated the other day, I've been through 4 recessions, 4, economic downturns, corrections, whatever you want to do them. And it's my experience that in all of those times, there was opportunity, there's great opportunity. And I think if you have the wherewithal and you go looking, there is opportunity now. There's opportunity for consolidation. There's opportunity for M&A. There's opportunity for new businesses. It's never when is a good time to start a new business. My experience, starting a new business as close to the bottom of the upturn as possible is a good thing to do. So if I was coming into the business world, I'd be looking at that, thinking, it's a time to pull this together and get going. I look at it's just been an unbelievable time, obviously, with COVID, with geopolitical, with the situation in Ukraine, with an economic downturn, with interest rates. You could get yourself in a place where you think it's never been as bad, right? I'm of a view that all downturns were bad, and all downturns at the time seemed like they were the worst things ever. When I stop and think about it, and by the way, I have to, and I'll come back to your question about mental health, I do look at the robustness of the world. We've had a downturn, and yet it's not. We don't have rubbish piled in the streets. We don't have winters of discontent. We've got a war. We've got a situation going on that in other times would have been really, really deep cut in terms of its economic recession impact. Now, of course, that may get worse. It may get better. But I am pleasantly surprised at the robustness of the economies around the world to cope with what's going on at the moment. And I think the robustness of lots of different industries. I also think there is so much doom and gloom around climate. I was lucky enough to work with Jeff Bezos on the launch of the climate
Yeah.
The Climate Pledge at Amazon, which was a program that they took their time figuring out, you know, so that it was robust. It was built on a solid framework of achievability and measurability. And so I got very close to that and spent some time building what was at the time our most successful pre-tested ad, the one to launch the Climate Pledge. And you know, as part of that course, I saw, yeah, there's reason to be really worried about what's going on. And I lay my cards out. I'm not a climate denier. I you know, I believe, I don't know whether it's a full-on crisis or whether it's a you know, a challenge yet, and people are at different levels of that scale. I do think there's, you know, we don't know the answers to solve it yet, and yet that's a new industry, that's an opportunity, that's a open blank piece of paper, an open industry where the best minds, the best entrepreneurs can pile in and figure out something that's never in the history of mankind been as important as potentially this is. So that's a great opportunity. You know, all I read is AA and robots are killing, you know, jobs, and, you know, this is happening and the working man's going to suffer. But yeah, one door shuts and another one opens is an expression that I've always loved in my life. Now, to go back to your question about mental health, you know, I, as a default, tend to start with doom and gloom. You know, I'm not naturally always an optimist. You know, there are some people in your life, you know, that they are always going to give you a fillip, they're always going to give you a boost, and always look to see the positive. I don't, and I've had to train myself to do that. You know, I think I'm always fairly open about it. I've had a fairly what they euphemistically call a colorful life, and I've had my challenges in the past, certainly with mental health issues, certainly with in and around addiction, and that the process around dealing with that is very much part of my life. So I have to, you know, more often than not, when I wake up, I have to sit and look at, I write a gratuity list every day. I write 10 things that I got to be grateful for, and they can be work, they can be family, they can be, you know, the view that I've got out of my window here in King's Cross. It can be, but usually it's around the opportunities I have, the health I've got, where I live, where I was born, my, you know, the advantages that I just got day one in life. And when I sit and write my gratuity list, and when I write that on the days when I don't want to write it, that's when I realize how much there is to be, you know, happy about and to look forward to in life, and how much it always reminds me how much a master of my own destiny I am. You know, it's I think there was the Baz Luhrmann song. Do you remember that, Sunscreen, back in the 90s? You know, you and he said something in there along the lines of you're as happy as you choose to be. And so without sounding all happy clappy woo woo lentil bashing about it, building the muscle to consider things, write your gratuity list, really accurately evaluate where you are, for me, is the way it sets me up, sets my mind up. And then I do other stuff, you know, these days, things that have become tools for business people like never before, you know, mindfulness, meditation. Not all of that is right for everyone, and bits of it are right for someone, but I would urge anyone to go and look at that, you know, breathing techniques. When I had my dark period back at the end of the 90s, and, you know, I had to fundamentally change everything about my life. I went and I did martial arts, you know, and I went mad on martial arts for about 10 years. But one of the best things I learned in that was breathing and meditation, and the long-term impact that has on you. You know, you don't sit down, meditate, get up and think, yeah, I'm immediately refreshed and immediately have a clear outlook on and an awareness of where I need to be. But by doing those behaviors, adopting those behaviors as part of a routine of as a business person, as an entrepreneur, definitely have long-term benefits. Definitely long-term benefits for me. And so
swimming, Simon, as well, because swimming is very meditative. You get your breathing. You've just swum very long distance, haven't you, just now?
Yeah, I did. I just did the Bosphorus race, where you go to Istanbul, you got 2 hours and you swim from Asia to Europe across a 6K, which is was deeply profound and spiritual. You know, you jump in the water and you're on your own. You're in deep 100-meter deep water in a fast flowing river. And I find that I've always got to seek those things, those you know, whether it's the next challenge. I like to have the next not just my business activity planned out. I like to have the next spiritual thing planned out. So it'll be a swim, or it'll be a trip, or it'll be a hike, or it'll be a walk, or it'll be a trip to Jordan or Israel, or, you know, a destination that I'm just going to go and learn something new. And I do try, there's a thing in the 12-step process of AA called the Just for Today card. When I am looking for something, and when I'm not necessarily in a natural state of happiness, I default to that. I read the Just for Today card, which talks about, you know, doing little things on a daily basis that will add up to big things. It talks about doing things every day that will push you and stretch you. And I like to build those achievements, those goals into my life as well, so that I feel I've always got a sense of momentum. And then I think that automatically gives you something to look forward to and makes you happy. But the main point, I do think, is with ruthless self-honesty and a protocol and a process of evaluating where you are, you get to realize, you know, you're in a better state than you are. And that, you know, we all suffer from this self-centered fear. And I love that quote. I think I sent it to you when you asked me to do this, which is our worst fears and our highest hopes are seldom recognized, which means that, you know, the things that can become paralyzing, the fears that can become paralyzing and stop you doing self-centered fear, you know, either macro fear or micro fear. What you can't do something, the environment around you won't let you do that, or the world's in such a bad place you might as well not bother. That is the number one offender, you know. So that fear is the number one offender. But I find if you follow those processes, you are building muscle and a tool set to allow you to cope with that on a daily basis.
How's that? Very interesting. I think that's fascinating, because I want, obviously we talk a lot about coming out of COVID, about people having perhaps slightly less resilient, or perception of people having less resilience. But in actual fact, what you're, you know, sometimes if you're sitting down to write something, starting with a blank sheet of paper is absolutely more paralyzing than if you've got a very clear brief. And I do wonder whether your point about sort of sitting, framing your ambitions and what you do within a recognition of where one is right now in space. That actually there's a sort of reality and an anchoring about that, which is not some wafty, you can achieve anything you want, you can be, you know, kind of Chelsea footballer, you know, it's sort of, you know, these never, but actually going, here's where we are and here's where we need to get to, and I can do any number of ways of, you know, using my own resilience and my own tools to be able to get there. Perhaps that is actually, there's a sort of reality about that actually, coupled with businesses really understanding that they need to give space for people to do things in their own way, because everyone's sort of wired differently. Maybe that is a positive as well, coming into a new era, if you like, post-COVID. What do you think?
I bet we'll look back on it in 10 years' time and see it that way. Yeah, we're probably still too close to coming out of it. The slingshot on the back of the moon, you know, we're probably still too close to it to truly evaluate it, and our attention has been you know, sidetracked on geopolitical events, you know, economic events, societal, you know, violent stuff that's going on. I don't think we've had the time to process it yet. But I'm sure within 10 years' time, we will look back on it and see that it was that. And I really hope that it, my biggest worry was the downturn, and Ukraine sort of took the climate issue off the top of our personal agendas and the news agendas. And I was fearful for a while that everyone had gone, oh, well, we're all going to die, so sod that. We don't need to solve the carbon crisis. But, I think that's back on the agenda now. And I think I love it when I see the young, bright minds in the world working on that solutions that we need for that.
Well, that is a brilliant reason to be cheerful to end on. Simon Morris, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. All right. Take care.